The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. I hope you're doing well. It's another episode of The Stack where we focus on people, business, and technology. Now, today, one of the best topics that I love to talk about is cybersecurity. Obviously, it's a topic that never gets old, and I don't think we'll ever stop talking about. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the chilling reminder of just how quickly that trust can be weaponized. We know cyber attackers aren't always using brute force anymore. They're using infiltration. Instead of breaking in, attackers are often just logging in using legitimate accounts to wreak havoc from the inside. And so we're going to discuss this and so much more. We're going to go ahead and bring in our guest. We have a special guest today with Sophos, Brittany Deaton. And there is Brittany. How are you doing today, Brittany?
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here, and I know you are part of a huge organization that's had tremendous growth over the years. I've watched you guys and have kept an eye on you guys, and the depth of your products has just exploded over the years, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we started definitely as a products company, but the area of focus is services and especially with our partners because we've seen that the demand has really been for the intellectual capability of analysts, incident responders, detection engineers, and we're really trying to shift that focus to make sure that we can provide the human capacity that our MSPs need.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the great thing that, I hear from a lot of MSPs is that you guys truly can become an extension of their team. And so it's more than just, a product that they're going to install. You guys have a lot of talent and support behind the scenes that allows them to truly tackle accounts that maybe they couldn't do if, without having internal staff.
Right. And as the landscape changes drastically, you need multiple different team members to address those needs. It's not just people that are responding to alerts. You have to have intel that's looking for new and emerging threats,
Yeah.
threat hunters that are constantly implementing the hunts on what intelligence is finding, detection engineering to feed those tools. And it's really expensive to
Yeah.
build that capability out yourself. It's a lot of these MSPs are just trying to keep their heads above the water, dealing with security incidents. And so to kind of look at that other aspect of the proactive approach to this, it's complicated.
Yeah, yeah, and as you're looking to scale your MSP, I mean, inevitably, you have to add more staff, and unfortunately, there is a significant cost to that. And when you can partner with somebody like Sophos and have them be part of your team, I mean, you can scale much faster from that perspective. But also, you can start tackling accounts that maybe that you'd be more reluctant to trying to go after just because you're like, I don't know if we have the talent to support it. But yeah, so it's a great win-win from that perspective. And in your role as you're a senior sales engineer, how long have you been with Sophos?
So I've been with Sophos for about 3 years, but prior to that, I was an engineer for a security company. I also did a lot of work in the SOC, and the primary focus of my career was incident response. And so I've
Okay.
certainly seen, what it means to be
Yeah.
in the weeds, dealing with this, and now I get to take kind of the fun approach of teaching people about how to be proactive in that approach and making sure that they're covered in that standpoint.
A little bit less stress, right?
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
So you guys, recently your MDR team had uncovered and stopped a very highly coordinated ransomware attack before it caused massive disruption. We know, how things can happen, and the disruption it can impact a business, on the scale of 1 to 10 so quickly. It goes or zero to 60 in 2 seconds, right?
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
this attack had originated from a compromised MSP account, which we know that bad actors love to, go after MSPs because it's that one-to-many approach.
Mhm.
And, in this case, it was, there was access to what, 95 client accounts, I believe it was the total.
Exactly. Yeah. So this client had the keys to the kingdom, 95 larger accounts. And, that one to many approach, especially when we're dealing with ransomware, they want to make money. Like, obviously,
Yeah,
this the end goal. And if you can compromise 95 accounts with just one compromised account, I
right.
mean, a landmine, that's exactly what you want to do. And
Yeah.
so you think about, oh, maybe it's just the customer account that got breaches. Like, that's not nearly as impactful as it compromising the MSP itself.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the number of, the average number of endpoints at each account, you times that by 95. I mean, that's a huge win for a bad actor. I mean, let's put it into perspective. Let's put ourselves in their shoes. I mean, they're running a business. They're doing the wrong thing. I mean, like if they could use that talent for good, life would be amazing. But we know that that's not what their goal is. They want to
Mm-mm.
cause disruption. They want to make some significant money during this process, and that's just that scary thing where we all in our businesses, we all go out and score a big account. We're cheering and clapping, and we're like, yes, we just landed a whale, right? They do the same thing. It's just in a bad
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, within moments in this particular case, multiple customer environments were at risk of encryption, data theft, and operational shutdown. What I'd like to do is get into a little bit of some of the inside details here of how did this investigation start? What prompted it?
Yeah, so it actually started with a legitimate looking phishing email, and it was from control account support at connectwise.eu.com. Now, ConnectWise is the company that hosts Screen Connect. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with Screen Connect, but it is a
Yeah,
super common remote management tool that a lot of our MSPs use to just really easily log in to all of their customer accounts. Now, about a year ago, we did see a severity 10 vulnerability that was associated with Screen Connect that allowed you to just log into all of these accounts. This actually wasn't associated with a vulnerability. It just looked like a normal Screen Connect email that had the appropriate formatting that said, hey, you have an alert, click here to sign in.
yeah,
Being the good administrator that they were for this MSP, they said, oh, let me check out this alert. Let me just click into it. They didn't realize that it was a phishing email. And
mm,
so they clicked that embedded link. Unknowingly, they redirected themselves to a phishing Screen Connect URI via Google Chrome. And then that was how the attacker was provided the unauthorized access to that MSP's remote management portal. So it
wow,
was very quick. And so as soon as they had that, they had valid account credentials. They gained access to Screen Connect, and it was a legitimate remote access tool. So as soon as they got in, they deployed a malicious instance of Screen Connect across multiple estates using that partner account. So they're in, they've got the
yeah.
keys to the kingdom. They look exactly like that threat actor. That was how that initial foothold was established.
That's just scary. I mean, when you take a look at, from our perspective, but also the clients. I mean, when
Mhm.
they hear that an incident like that has taken place, obviously, I guess it depends on how to what level is it stopped, right? Was it stopped at the level of at the MSP level where it didn't get any further, or did it go beyond that right away?
So here is the kicker.
Yeah.
With this specific MSP, we were able to stop the ransomware that was being deployed at our protected assets. But a lot
Okay.
of times in these cases, there are going to be unmanaged assets. So that
Yeah.
means there's no endpoint protection installed. We don't know about these machines. And we're really trying to focus on what we have visibility to. Now, kind of a side note is that Sophos obviously protects the endpoints and servers, but we also have integrations that look at things like Veeam, we look at email, we look at Microsoft, we look at network detection and response, we look at firewalls. And so if you have additional protection that's in place, then that can alert us sooner if you have unmanaged assets. But in this case, yes, we were able to stop it on the machines that had our endpoint agent, but there were other machines that we found out after the fact that were completely unmanaged. And this partner also had no idea that they were unmanaged assets.
Oh,
and
wow.
so they were logging in and moving laterally to those. Now, we caught it specifically at a common command and control IP address. So we had a specific IP address. It was associated with killing ransomware. And that's where we were seeing the Screen Connect logins from. And so that was one of our first indicators that we were seeing. Additionally, we saw tools that had not been used in the environment being leveraged in a malicious way. So easy upload IP ranges we're seeing in the environment, as well as a Chrome setup file. Those were being used as exfiltration by the adversaries. WinRAR was being used for making sure that they could collect that data as well.
Okay.
We additionally saw that the attacker was booting into safe mode. So this is something that you can do for troubleshooting to just make sure that your protections aren't in place, seeing if something is happening in the environment. But this is a huge defense evasion strategy, and it prevents security tools from detecting or stopping ransomware. We were also seeing all of this being done by that privileged administrative account.
Yep.
And so we were seeing this happening in 3 customer environments. So this was happening concurrently in 3 customer environments. So we were able to stop it pretty quickly. But CryptoGuard is a feature within our XDR toolset and InterceptX Advanced toolset that is able to see the initial encryption of files, and it stops that encryption process and it rolls back those files in real time without having to use shadow copies. So on the machines that we had the tool set deployed, we stopped the ransomware in real time.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, and I'm sure that MSP was freaking out. I mean, for lack of a better way to say it, and it is, what is amazing though is, think about those phishing attacks, those phishing emails. I just recently heard of one that was Screen Connect related that was hitting some CPA firms, and it appeared to be coming from the Social Security Administration. And the URL was pointing to some poker website that was malicious, and we have to focus both on the technology stack and also that human element, right? So as far as training those end users, because when we're putting them behind this laptop or this desktop, it's essentially this vehicle that could cause destruction in their environment, and beyond.
Oh, absolutely. And the social engineering is getting way better. I have certainly received emails myself where I said, hey, I was expecting this training, or hey, I was expecting this update to Confluence. And I thought like, oh, this is something I've been looking out for. This is something that I'm used to seeing in my inbox. This is something that I trust as part of my normal business operations.
Right.
You have to be extremely careful at looking at who it's coming from. Are there specific typos? Can you hover over the link and see if it's actually trying to go to the link that you're expecting, et cetera? And even if you're unsure, you can, right click that link, put it into VirusSoul, see exactly where it's coming from. But they're just getting better, right? And it's a lot easier to just get someone to click something rather than brute forcing and creating a lot of noise, because it is noisy to exploit vulnerabilities. It is noisy to brute force when you can just say, hey, I saw on LinkedIn that this guy is an administrator at this MSP, and I can just craft an email to him. There's a lot that you can look at from an OSINT perspective to say, hey, these are my key players at an organization. And I could probably guess from the domain that they're using at the website, and maybe it's a first dot last, maybe it's first initial last.
Yeah.
whatever that is, and you can just guess and see what sticks and craft that email a couple of times maybe to
Yep.
get a pretty high click rate versus having to brute force anything. And that's exactly what happened in this case.
Yeah, and like you're saying, like, when you're expecting an email, let's take a look at the CPA example. I mean, we're 3 weeks away. I don't know when this example happened, but we're 3 weeks away from taxes being due.
Oh yeah,
You
we
know,
are all
so
getting them.
yeah, so I mean, CPA firms, I mean, they are moving and grooving. They're this is their Christmas, and it's extremely busy for them. And and I like to say is we're all too quick to click,
Mhm.
and we are doing our jobs. We're moving. We're trying to get things done, and bam, that one click can have such a huge huge disaster in the ramifications.
Mhm.
So, we talked about some of those indicators that you guys saw after that initial process. What are some other indicators that you guys saw after that initial access?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were seeing additionally remote access software being used. So Screen Connect was obviously being used, but we are also seeing PS Exec. So this is obviously built into,
Yeah.
your Windows suite, and it is leveraged by adversaries a lot to run remote commands on machines. We're seeing Mimikatz being used to dump
Mm.
creds as well as secret dumps Etsy for domain credential dumping. At the application layer, we were seeing multiple other instances of a malicious Russian version of Screen Connect. And then exfiltration was happening over easy upload. And so this was associated with Killen ransomware. And Killen is ransomware as a service. They use double extortion. They typically try to target large enterprises, and it comes in through phishing, and they use remote services to implement that attack. And so we were able to associate those IP addresses very quickly with them. And we were able to really take a more surgical approach to this attack in addition to the machines that we had access on. The agent itself was stopping that ransomware, but you do still need a human led approach for containment and mitigation when it's not just ransomware implementing, right? There's going to be an aspect of removing malicious artifacts that could potentially be associated with administrative behavior as well. That might be tools that are built into your system, etc.
Yeah. So when we take a look at that next step, and as far as your MDR team, can you talk a little bit about how they responded to this scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we did was obviously Screen Connect was impacted. And this was exactly how that attacker got access to the environment. So we used application control measures and we blocked Screen Connect. So just cut that out of the equation for further exploitation. With that being said, we also have access to the endpoints that have the XDR agent on them to do any type of live response from a command line. From the Sophos Central portal, we also did binary hash blocking. So the execution of Killen ransomware was blocked across the entire environment. And there was immediate isolation. So any of the servers that we were seeing impacted, we were able to immediately isolate those. Now, when we isolate, that's just network isolation. We still have access to those servers
Okay.
for logging in and performing any remediation. And then there was a ton of manual threat removal and terminating malicious processes. So all of the malicious Screen Connect processes were identified and are terminated across all of the estates. And then that persistence. So there was a registry modification as well as malicious services that were in the environment, and we removed those. And then, as I said earlier, that command and control IP address that was associated with Killen, we were able to block all inbound and outbound traffic to the known threat actor IPs, and we did see new ones that were being added additionally. And so those were all added to the block list. And then there was a disabling of those compromised accounts. And so because that account had access to obviously every single environment, because it
Yeah.
was one of our administrators, we certainly identified that and were disable it from misuse.
Gotcha. And, like in that case, like you said, I mean, it was affecting not only that it started with that primary account, but then continued on to being three different accounts. So there was a lot of isolation that was occurring. Um,
Mhm.
in the event that you're able to stop it, maybe in one environment, maybe it starts with one particular endpoint. You know, Once that's isolated, I mean, are there still steps that you guys are taking from that perspective? Even though it seems to be targeted and isolated to one type of endpoint or one specific endpoint.
Yeah, and that's a great question. For these cases, obviously it relies heavily on not only the alerts that we're seeing, but when we do run into incidents, we have a threat intelligence and a threat hunting team. So if we are seeing potentially new indicators, then we hunt for those and we look at associated activity around those. So in this case, we were seeing new indicators, and those were added to additional hunting reference points for
Gotcha.
our team. And when we see those, they're built into detections moving forward to stop them.
Gotcha. Um, so as we're working to wrap things up here, what are some of your key takeaways that you'd like to share with our MSP audience?
Yeah, as an MSP, you are just a wealth of potential customers that we can compromise all at once. So when you have partner level administrative accounts, know that they are high risk, right? A super admin account, if it's compromised, it can enable attackers to have access to all of your estates simultaneously. So you want to not only be using a complex password, but obviously you want multi-factor authentication as well. And just stay on top of protecting that account. Make sure that you do have multiple layers of authentication so that if it does get compromised, then you have some additional measure to stop that. We also want to just underscore that uniform credentials can increase attack surface. So the same admin username across multiple estates, that gave the attacker the ability to infiltrate these environments at a much more rapid pace than we
Yeah.
would have seen otherwise. And so instead of them having just access to the customer account, they had the keys to the kingdom. And then this attack was able to carry out itself very quickly. And with the early correlation of IOCs, it's super important, right? So when we saw that one specific command and control IP address, we knew that it was associated with killing. That was able to spawn the investigation immediately. So it wasn't just an administrator performing these tasks. We saw immediately that by them logging into the Screen Connect instance from an IP address that we had never seen before, boom, we automatically know to kick off that investigation. And then
Excellent.
in persistence, like if we are seeing persistence in the environment, we certainly want to make sure that these footholds need constant monitoring, right? So if they are leveraging Screen Connect to get into the environment, just know that these tools are really easy to use, but they're also really easy for threat
Yeah.
actors to use, and they can maintain long-term persistence in your environment just
Yeah.
using tools that you're used to using, which is living off the land.
Yeah, I mean, especially if that isn't a tool that you're using in like these cases, you mentioned that, you were blocking Screen Connect and, I mean, if they're, if it's viewed as a threat and it's not being used at all and you're blocking it, that's, one step, that can be taken.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one was a really cool one. I thought it would be fun to share in
Yeah.
terms of just what you should be looking out. A lot of times we try to put the onus on, the customer to make sure that they're not clicking links, but what we don't realize is that the MSPs have to be much more diligent in their security focus and really what they are doing in terms of potentially clicking on malicious links or what those credentials are used for, and do we have multi-factor authentication to stop that?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we want to make things easier for us, and you were talking about the use of common credentials, and we've always said that to an end user account, the easier we make it for you, the easier we're making it for bad actors, and we need to keep that in mind for the ourselves as MSPs because we try to make things easy for our technicians so that they can as quick and efficiently as possible, service that client, but that could put, yourself and them at risk. And so critical of understanding that you do have to jump through hoops. I mean, this is the world we live in. There's no way around it. So
Yeah. Do you want to spend more time now, or do you want to spend more time later dealing with an incident? And
yeah,
it's unfortunate that we have to be in that situation, but good security is not easy.
exactly. Well, I really appreciate our discussion. And, for any of our audience that want to learn more about Sophos, of course, you can check out sophos.com. There's a ton of information out there, a lot of great resources. You guys have a lot of events, both in person as well as virtually. And so, great resource. And also, if you're at the everythingmsp.com website, you can search up Sophos, and we have information there as well. And that's how you can reach out to them. So if you wanted to speak with a member of their sales team, you can fill out a contact form and submit that. But Brittany, awesome conversation, great area of focus. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. And everybody out there, thank you for listening to us. Until next time, we will talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.